There's like 8 people in this room. Thanks for those of you who chose to come up to this talk. This is, I'm just going to talk about the work we're doing. I'm not going to present a whole ton of data, but we're doing some work within the behavioral health system that I think is well, it's a hell of a lot of fun, but it's cool, and we're kind of continually trying to meet the challenge of a very complex community. And so, sorry, I'm Ehren Werntz. I'm the clinical director for behavioral health services at AZA United, 2 doors down. So what I want to start with is the idea that, is traditionally as behavior analysts, many of us are programmed to come in and assess the behavior of an individual and change the contingencies around immediately around that person to shape behavior, which is well and good. But what I'd like people to think about a little bit is the broader environment of the people that we're working with. The complex nature, not only of our clients' families, the consumers' families, maybe our own families too, and all of the moving parts that need to kind of move together smoothly so that some sort of homeostasis can be achieved, right? So who knows? It's community, it's PTA, it's financial, it's schedules and routines, and meeting the needs of significant others, and all of those things, and how all of those things kind of need to move together to have a healthy family ecosystem. Lots and lots and lots of moving parts, right? And maybe some of these moving parts that aren't usually considered in a traditional ABA program. And what I'm going to kind of talk about and advocate for is the need to attend to all of those different components and take a broader look at the ecosystem in which behavior sort of operates. So certainly I know that some of you guys working in the behavioral health field, you are very much aware, but maybe some of you who aren't. This is a system that is that serves a community that has needs above and beyond those of maybe other related service or other maybe traditional ABA communities. This is a system where there's we've got a lot of families with affected by mental illness, parents with mental illness, siblings with mental illness, whether that be bipolar or schizophrenia or any number of things. We've got these are families that often have some history of, I shouldn't say often, but I'd say more than above the general population, have more history of abuse, neglect, CPS involvement, that sort of thing. Single parent households, depression, and so all of these other things, and these serve from a behavior change perspective. These are other variables and things that to be considered, right? Things to be considered as part of the broader ecosystem, and things that we should consider and attend to as we are thinking about an individual behavior change program. So what we're doing, and my team, our department, what we're trying to do is provide, I guess the goal is a sustainable behavior change opportunity for our families. Delivering, teaching the skills that go beyond just the skills training, just that, just the moves of shaping a child's behavior. How can we teach the skills, provide the knowledge and the confidence for families to make very big life changes that carry on beyond just just simply our behavioral treatment program. We make those big shifts, and to make those big pivots, those big shifts, what we really need to be looking at and thinking about are going back to all of those moving parts and the fact that all of those other parts need attention to and things we need to consider. And so what I'll share with you now, well, I'll share with you in just a minute, it's kind of different things that we're trying to do to do that. So what we're doing, what we're looking at is an ecological take on shaping behavior. So the way I look at it, we've got the environment in which our behavior is the target behavior operates, and that's sort of at the heart. Maybe we're looking at a client or a consumer member who's got extreme physical aggression, self-injury, or something like that. So that's kind of at the core, and now we need to, outside of that, okay, what's the layer outside of that behavior change? Well, then we need to look at how we're shaping on the shapers, the people who are invested in and interacting with that individual most of all. So family members. I think we are good shapers of behavior, right? But that interaction has, that doesn't have a really long shelf life. So if we're shooting for sustainable change over time, who do we need to teach? Well, we need to teach the family members, mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and aunts and uncles and all these other people. Okay, so we can teach them the moves. We can teach them when to praise, when to walk away, when to deliver points. We can teach them the DROs and the behavioral relaxation. We can teach them all the skills. Okay. But outside of that, and here I think is where I'd really like to focus my attention today, is how are we paying attention to all of the other things that stand to get in the way of this maintenance, the maintenance of the technical skills over time. Maybe we've got parents with histories of trauma. We've got parents who are isolated. Whether it's they're not getting enough support from their spouse. They don't have a good community network. They are dealing with, they've got depression, they've got anxiety. And they're not coping with those things very well. Those are having more stimulus control over their behavior and moment to moment without us there, than maybe just the motivation to, follow through or stick to the plan. So how are we addressing this confidence? How are we addressing maybe some of those private events that show up with parents in service of maintaining the technical skills, in service of the target behavior for the behavior targeted for change? So here's what we're trying to do. So what our program, is many behavioral programs. They're in sort of a constant state of evolution and improvement. Where we are right now with ours is at the core. At the core, it is a family coaching, family training program. One designed to instill the primary caregivers, the long-term, the people who are invested in the individual that we're there to serve more than anybody. Rather than a tech or a habilitator, now we do believe that those people need the same training too. But really the focus is, in terms of the skills training, are family members. So other things that we're trying to do to attend to that whole ecosystem are some of these other things. So what we did is we started looking at parenting couples or moms and dads relationships with each other, and how if we attended to those and we got mom and dad on the same page. Very often families would get in and outside of this system. Families, moms and dads are on very, very different pages in terms of parenting. And it's been my experience too that behavioral intervention, home-based behavioral intervention, can be one of those things that sometimes it has sort of a galvanizing effect on parenting and can bring parents together, but it can also have exactly the opposite effect of, like, now there's this thing that we can be on either side of, right? I don't want therapy, I don't want these people around, and I'm gone. I think many of us know, working in the field, it's not uncommon. Dads whose coping mechanisms are avoidance, right? Their coping mechanisms are, I'm going to work 80 hours a week. I'm just not going to be around. So if we can work to get mom and dad working together and communicating and come to some agreement on how we're going to parent, are we going to see improved behavior change? Anecdotally, we're seeing yes. We're doing this with, say, right now in the program, we've got about 35 families. And we're doing couples work with, I want to say, 6 or 7. And it's been very interesting to watch how, since we've introduced a couples therapy component, not only are the behavioral improvements accelerating, but the reports from the parents about their whole satisfaction with the program, with their child, with their quality of life, that perception is improving. We do surveys on this pretty regularly. We've got that data looks nice. So it's fun. It's cool to see, and it's very reinforcing to see that. So some of the other things we started doing, we started offering parent support groups. Mandating, but offering parent support groups. In an effort to, and I'll talk more specifically about each one of these, but like parent support groups in an effort to help parents build a network outside of just the therapists. We started, actually, SIB shops start next week. So we haven't done this yet, but we're super stoked about incorporating SIB shops into this to attend to the needs of the siblings. We do parent management training. Parent management training, this sort of scaffolds nicely off of our keynote this morning. Parent management training is role play. It's a role play format, skills training where we meet with the parents and we role play. We teach them all the moves, and we're able to do that full, explain, model, practice, feedback with them on the skills prior to the sessions, which allows us to get that feedback without undermining them in front of their kids, which is a big deal for everything. But it also allows us to get into the session and just say, all right, you know the moves, you know the moves. And finally, ACT. ACT is something that we've introduced into the program as sort of a standalone thing for, it started as that, like we just start working with parents, and I'm trying not to get too far ahead of myself, because I could just talk ACT all day. But it's interesting how the principles of this have seeped through everything else we're doing in the program in terms of paying attention on purpose for a reason. So all of these things, our goal is to support this parent training program at the core. And it's been fun and it's been cool to watch as families sort of contact different parts of this, and we watch their progress accelerate. So, what's at the core of the program? The core of the program, parent coaching. It's like I said, this is our we're in vivo behavioral skills training with the parent, targeting a handful of problematic behaviors. They're major priorities to them. We've got some interesting things that we do here. So measuring progress, so just like we would in a typical ABA program, where we're tracking observable behavior and watching that reduce over time. But one of the other things that we do in these sessions is all of my staff wear little buzzers, like motivators, that go off every 5 minutes. And what we track is who's running the sessions in that moment. Who is delivering the instruction? Who is leading the interaction with the child? So what we measure over time and what we observe over time is, when behaviors are going down and parents are leading the session, when we see parents running the session and we're really like working our way out of those interactions and we're still seeing progress with the behavior, then we can start having our conversation about transition. And I think that's kind of a fun thing to look at and watch. But yeah, it's in these interactions too where we're teaching our parents to do all the shaping, whatever that might be. And we've had a lot of fun with that, and it's been cool to, like I said, kind of track the session leadership is one of the components, right along with behavior and fidelity and stuff like that, and kind of watch as those things kind of come together. And we're like, okay, when we first got into the system, that was one of the things we really struggled with. Was like, what sort of data do we use to really kind of know when we're ready to transition, other than just the behavioral data? When we're in there all the time, who is that, the behavior reduction, what is that a result of? Is that a result of our intervention, or how much have we transferred to the parent? And so that's been kind of a cool thing to watch. And in addition to that, the other things we do is we regularly survey the families to see what they're, we're checking in on their satisfaction. How are they doing? How are they feeling? How are they feeling about us? How are they feeling about the kids? How confident are they? How confident are they about, doing these intervention strategies when we're there, when we're not there? And so again, these data become part of the discussion of when we're ready to transition. We're looking at that confidence over time too. And so that's I think kind of a cool thing to just watch the convergence of all those things. Yeah, so it's fun. So peer management training, what the model for peer management training that we've adopted is CASD method, parent management training. It's a very structured curriculum. I think it's most on label probably for kids with oppositional aggressive, not necessarily kids with autism. There's a little bit of published research on using this with children with or for children with autism. However, all of that is just using this as a standalone, so just the role play component, and seeing major results with the kids. But this PMT, this is where we teach parents specific ways to deliver instructions that you don't find, specific ways to deliver good, solid, reinforcing praise. And it's very nicely paced, which I feel is a really good thing for me too. I think it's not uncommon for many of us in the world of behavior change to walk into a family home and think, oh God, and it's we're going to work on this, and we're going to work on this, and we're going to work on this, and these are all of the things that we need to sort of, and is very overwhelming to the person on the other end of that. This particular program is nicely placed so that, okay, this week we're working on this. And this week we're working on, this week we're working on attending a meal. This week we're working on delivering points. This week we're working on schedules. This week we're working on praising. And the pacing of that, I think, is really, really cool. In addition, the role play components and allowing us to do embed those skills into the parent's repertoire outside of the actual direct coaching session has had. This has also been a cool accelerant of the actual behavior change. And most recently, what we've been doing, we're just kind of introducing this, and I'm curious to see the impact of it. But as I mentioned, the principles of processes of acceptance and commitment therapy, what we're doing in these and coaching sessions too, it's a lot easier in these, but what if we add a component of, before we start teaching, like, what if we take a minute to sort of get in the room and work on paying attention on purpose? And then why don't we establish between us in our work together, in our time together today, why don't you pick up value? So add a values component to this, right? And I think that moves us closer towards a social validity target. And my hope with adding, some mindfulness and values components into this type of stuff is, will that impact maintenance between our sessions and once we're out of there? So these are unknowns for me right now, but things that I'm optimistic about at this point and excited about. And certainly as a clinician, things that make the experience more valid and valuable for me, right? It adds another component. It adds a layer of richness to it that I think wasn't there before we sort of tapped into those types of things. So couples. So we started doing, I brought on a couples counselor with a behavioral background. She'd been one of our coaches for a while, so she was experienced with kind of the dynamic in the population and what we were trying to do. But she also had this great skill of, being able to do couples counseling. It's interesting too how the ACT stuff is sort of gotten into her repertoire as well. But this has been a really cool feature to bring into this holistic program. And we're doing couples work with, out of our 35 families, I say we're doing couples work with probably 7 or 8 of the 35. We can get them both there and doing it. It has a very cool impact. I'll give you an anecdote. We were working with a family, and the child has autism and some other stuff going on. I'd say to look at him though, it's very oppositional. Very, very bright kid. Very oppositional. Very aggressive. And we started working with the family, and it became very apparent right off the bat that mom and dad were just, they could not be further apart. And then we kind of learned too that dad is diagnosed oppositional defiant disorder, which was the trip. So it's like, okay, here we go. But in our work with them, we got dad to come up, we tapped into sort of dad's value. We got him to sort of label what he wants to be about with his children, with his family, which led him into, I think we should do some couples work. And boy howdy, the tenor in that house was tense, acrimonious, and I've not had a parent in my 15 years working with families, like I've never had anybody square off with me before. And my first interaction with that dad was he squared off with me. Like, we're gonna have a fist fight in his living room, just for me. The tenor is so different. The compliments to the kids, to the wife, to the it's so healthy, and that shifted. That all started to shift when we got mom and dad talking together and agreeing on how we're going to run this household, how we're going to parent our children. So that's been a really cool and really meaningful component to the program. So we started doing support groups. I read an article. I think it was about Robert Waller's, like 1980, and it was about the idea that that parents who had social connections outside of just the therapists who were coming over, if they had friends, if they had community, if they were connected, whatever they learned in the behavioral or the parent training programs that they were in, those changes maintained very intuitively, much longer versus parents who were isolated, or the word they used was insular. But that makes a lot of sense. So about 3-4 months ago, what we started doing is we started running support groups with the sole purpose of let's get together, and let me put you in contact with somebody who's got a similar situation, who's got a similar story, who can relate, somebody who can truly say, like, I understand, this is tough, this is weird having all these people coming over to my house all the time, and getting them together. And what a cool thing that is to see, like, we'll have a group and watch, moms and dads connect and then say, like, let's set up a play date. Let's go, you want to go grab a beer after this. Like watching those connections get made. And again, I think this is one of those things that we hope, and maybe I'll be back here next year, like data to support all this. Right now, it's just all ambition. But wouldn't that be very cool to see how those relationships affected these major life changes that we're asking our families to do? Okay. So, man, so the ACT work we're doing, this has been really cool. What we understand, particularly with this population, is we're asking them to do things, make changes that they don't want to make in their life. We're asking them to change their interactions with their children. We're asking them to change the way, in some cases, they run their household top to bottom. And what I think when we started the program is purely a parent training program. What we didn't consider, what we weren't considering, was all of the history and all of the baggage that will get in the way of people making those major decisions. The avoidance of that discomfort. I wasn't parented that way. I'm uncomfortable interacting. I'm uncomfortable praising my child. That's an uncomfortable thing for me. I don't like, and so what we're trying to do with this work is help families, parents, open up to that discomfort. Can they identify, can they label the parent they want to be? And move toward that and be uncomfortable with it? Can they identify a value? What is the parent you want to be? When you're in these situations with your child, what do you want to see yourself doing? You want to be about with your kid. Now, what's getting in the way of that happening? And how, in our work together, can I help you move forward with that discomfort, through that anxiety, or the stuff. Yeah.
What kind of parent you want to be?
Yeah.
That's the craziest answer.
I haven't really gotten a super crazy answer. Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it flusters me. I don't know. I think that's the toughest, right? I don't know.
They never thought about it.
Never thought about it. And who knows why? Parenting maybe wasn't a priority for them. Maybe there's, I've got one family that I'm thinking of right now who they have the child, but aren't necessarily happy that they have the child, right? So they've got some resentment about even having it. Or we've got other families or we've got a lot of grandparent guardians, right? Grandparents who've inherited their children's children. And so, there's resentment around that. But I haven't run into a situation yet where somebody somebody identifies an unworkable habit. You know what I mean? It really does. People, don't want to be out of control. In my experience with it, don't want to be out of control with their children. They don't want to be dismissive of their children. They don't want to be insensitive. They don't want to see themselves, abusing or, get parents to contact things like want to be or move towards identify values like gentle, calm, and balanced are big ones. And we have them like, okay, let's write it down. Let's add values to this session and let's write it down and see if we can't, in our time together, in our work together, and in these tough situations, can we kind of still check in on that value? When we check in, and yes, we're going to deviate and we're going to veer from that, but can we keep kind of coming back to that? And being able to be in that moment and be doing, using the strategies of behavioral intervention for a reason beyond the coercion of like my interaction with them. Does that make sense? Like they're doing it for them, not to avoid whatever, ridicule they are afraid of from a clinician or discipline. So this is also something that we're trying to incorporate. And I mentioned again, the practice of paying attention on purpose. If we work with parents at the beginning of a session to just get in the room, can we just sort of, can we work to be here and now? Can we work to focus on your interaction with the child while your mind is at work, notice that that's happening, and still kind of come back to that. You practice repeatedly, sort of like notice your mind is at work and come back to what we're working on here and now. Notice that you're frustrated. Notice that you're angry. Notice that you're scared. Notice that maybe you're afraid of how this outing is going to go. Can you notice that? Can you still kind of remember, can you contact what that value is and still do this thing? Can you do it with the anxiety? Move forward with that fear. And so what we're trying to do with this is really like, attend to those needs as well, and recognize, and I think this is probably a shared experience of many of us, right? We've got a good plan. We've got a good, solid plan. It's perfect. Why can't anybody stick to it? Why can't anybody stick to it? Well, maybe there's a bigger picture here that we need to account for. What is this parent's history, right? What is going on? What is going on in their mind that is getting in the way of them following through, or walking away when they need to walk away, or paying attention to when their kid is doing exactly the right thing. Can they be around other people like the in-laws and get that instruction and feedback and critique and all of that stuff? And can they sort of notice it for what it is, right? And can they come back to what their value is, if their core, and can they come back to that? So that's been a cool feature, both in sort of like whether we're just doing kind of standalone act work together, or if we're taking that and we're just sort of interweaving it with the behavioral skills training that we're already doing. So that's been a lot of fun, and if anybody wants to hang back and just sort of talk or act and stuff, I'd love to. All right, where are we? Okay, so SIB shops. SIB shops, anybody's interested. We've got the SIB shop training workshop going on here next Friday and Saturday too. So we've got space if anybody wants to come. But again, with all the moving parts and the whole ecosystem in mind, we want to pay attention to the siblings too. There's a lot of reasons, right? So the siblings are often the antecedents for problematic behavior. They are the targets of problematic behavior and reinforcers of problematic behavior. And for a lot of reasons too, and not unreasonable reasons sometimes, right? These are our kids who are therefore are orbited by attention givers. And so what we hope to do with SID shops is provide, similarly to the support group for parents, we want to provide siblings with a network of their peers that can also say, I understand. We also hope to provide them with some empathy and some perspective skills on maybe what their sibling might be going through. And again, my hope is, can we lace these with, and we work on having siblings identify with their value? Is there something that in their interaction with their sibling that they want to be about? And if we connect with that, is that something that can keep them on course and produce a more positive outcome? So this is in the works, but I'm very, very excited about it. Yeah.
How is it going to work?
How is what going to work?
The SID shop that could be using, like, how many times?
How many times? So we're going to be running them. Our goal is, so we're going through the training and credentialing process next weekend. And we specific curriculum. There is, yes, yeah, there is, yeah. John Meyer has a published curriculum, and it's used worldwide. So I don't know it specifically. Ask me next week, and I don't know much more about it. Yeah.
I was doing
Yeah.
Who is the facilitating, or do you have actual licensed counselors doing this, or
Doing which?
providing the groups?
The groups, yes. So we've got a counselor who facilitates our groups and does our couples therapy as well. In terms of the ACT work, I'm doing that. And I can talk to you about how I've kind of gone about my own training and stuff in that.
And I'm assuming
Yeah.
for the sibling shop, you're providing like coping mechanisms, coping tools.
I assume so, yes. I assume so, yes. Yeah, coping perspective, but again, like for my own piece, I'd also like to see how some of this other stuff in terms of mindfulness and values integrated into that, and helping people kind of develop a new relationship with some of those impulses and feelings and emotions that we all kind of want to act on to, to avoid or to satiate. Can we develop a different relationship with that in service of being a better component of this family, being a more helpful component of this family? So coming full circle, what we're trying to do and what I hope to share, what I hope I've shared, is some thoughts, some ideas on looking at, taking into account all of the moving parts in a given family and things that as behavior change agents, as behavior analysts, that we should consider when we're looking to make large changes in an entire family unit, and taking the perspective and the time to recognize that it's not just about the treatment of the individual with the most obvious behavior, right? It's about them, their environment, and then the environment of the shapers of the behavior over time. And so this is what we're doing in our efforts, and I hope I hope this is valuable, and I'd like to, just sort of answer questions, and I just throw these up there as some references in reading that I have pulled from in terms of how we're developing the program and some of the stuff that these different programs and things are anchored in. So yeah, that's kind of it. But yeah, please, questions.
I've been hearing a lot about
Yeah.
incorporating the family into treatment, and
Yeah.
with my history of working with families and counseling, I can totally see the value of it in my transition over to behavioral health. It's super exciting to see all of this. And you mentioned that you're incorporating family therapy into the program. And I've been hearing a lot too about incorporating trauma into, like you were saying, wondering why the parents get to that point where they just can't engage in that behavior to help be successful.
Yeah.
And if trauma is a component of that, do you have a therapist that addresses trauma, or
We don't have anybody that's doing trauma specific. We certainly work to put people in contact with trauma therapists. But we're also, the thing is, we're not treating trauma, right? We're treating problem behavior, and we're helping parents be better parents to do that. So all of this stuff is kind of connected to that core parent training piece. So like I don't want to be misleading in that we're using some of these other things to treat depression or anxiety or schizophrenia or trauma, right? We're using them to support like better parenting and better behavior change. Yes.
So how back to some of the logistics.
Yes.
How has the behavioral health funding source supported your view of the family system? I agree. I really enjoyed seeing that. All these pieces that go into the family system, but funding. How have they been open to this?
Yes.
They have been.
I've found, at least down here, working with MMIC, pretty open to everything. Yeah.
Even some shops.
Yes. Yeah. It's really been. They're like, yeah, skills training. You can do that. You can bill for the member, right? While working with the sibling. It's really been refreshing, especially coming from DD.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's been extremely refreshing because I go in and I say, this is what I want to do. I've got this idea, we've got these needs, and I kind of make a case for it, and they say, go for it. Now, what I'd like to do is, is come back with all of this with good data to support it. We're working with some folks to help us do that. But yeah, no, I mean, everything's been kind of blue sky on a lot of this stuff, which has been not my experience working in publicly funded systems historically. So it's been pretty cool. And if you want to know specific codes, I can break it up.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes. Please.
Have you been in cases where you've got a child and they basically spend time in multiple households?
Yeah.
And navigate multiple families?
Yeah. I'm glad to bring that up. Yes, in a number of cases, and some have worked. We've got one right now where we're actually doing. So we call the couples. We don't really call it couples counseling, right? We call it couples solutions. And the idea is that it's like, look, we're not trying to necessarily dig too deep. It's a brief intervention, and it's really designed to get you guys on the same page in terms of your hand. So we've got one right now where we've got 3 kids who bounce back and forth between mom and dad in a week, right? So they spend half the week at mom's, half the week at dad's. It's a mess. And but what we've been doing is just trying to get mom and dad who live across town to come back together and at least come to terms on how we're going to be as parents, right? Can we at least communicate on that? Can we do communication logs back and forth? Can we do phone calls? Can we follow up? Can we talk about, like, I'm having success with this potty training thing over here, like, can I help you with that? Not necessarily repairing the relationship, but can we come to common ground on parenting? So that's what we're doing with that, and that's been really cool too, and incorporating some of the ACT stuff with that particular family, like that comes to mind as well, and how as soon as we started doing that, the quality of attention between parents and between like father and son, how that just dramatically increased. Like, he wasn't so uptight and prescribed about, you know, the praise and the quality of attention, like much more relaxed, and like, no kidding, we started incorporating that piece of it, and like, I don't know, a month later, we're ready to transition. Like, our work is kind of done there, and it really, like, did not see that coming. Right? So that's been cool, but it speaks to beyond just learning the moves. If we pay attention to these other things, man, like, he had the moves down. There was a quality to it that was missing. And once we got the parents talking together, and once we taught Dad to have a better handle on his anxiety and got him in touch with the dad he wants to be, like, things started humming, and it was really cool. We do have other situations, though, unfortunately, to speak to the flip side of that, where the kids do go to, I'm thinking of one situation where the grandparents have primary custody, but they go to, like, Dad's situation every other weekend, and Dad wants no part of us. And that's a tough one. That's a tough one. But when we can get them both agreeing, not to live together, not to repair this thing, but can we at least talk about how we're going to be as parents? That's been a really cool thing. Anybody else? No? Yes.
I just have a question. How do you, like, because with the behavioral health,
Yeah.
the team model, so
Yeah.
how do you bring any advice for working with teams or getting effective stories where you collaborating?
With, like, with other counselors and stuff like that? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that's a big component too, because when there are issues that are like trauma therapy and stuff like that, that are outside of what I know how to do, we do work very closely with them. I can think of one story where we were working with a family. Okay, so we're working with a family, and mom was a hoarder, and we needed to get that under control before we could make any movement with the kids' behavior in the home. So we worked closely with that counselor, and when I say, like, worked closely, like, we were present for her sessions, and she was present for our coaching sessions, and so we did that kind of hand in glove, and that was cool. And we try to do that. That was probably the most degree that we've been able to do that, but we try to do that. So, like, beyond just sitting around the table at a CFT and kind of talking about, like, who's doing what service, please come with me and watch the thing that I do, right? And if you're willing, maybe I can watch the thing that you do. And so, yeah, we do have our coaches go into, like, the trauma therapy sessions, sometimes when that's allowed, or there's been a couple others, but we do physically try to overlap it whenever possible. And it really helps sort of all those pieces, everybody be on the same page. It eliminates a lot of what I think might otherwise be like territory and competition type stuff. Like, this is my thing, no, this is my thing, but we're kind of all doing the same thing, like, let's just get eyes on it. So that's been really, really helpful, just invite them in. So, yeah. right, well, that's it. I have no idea where I am on time, but I'm about right on time, right?
Yeah,
Albert?
we'll do that.
Nice. All right, thanks, guys.
If anybody needs initial, we can run.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. No, I wanna, we gotta get together and talk about it. Yeah, well, and I think where, I was talking to Ed last night, here, because he's got a lot of papers and react stuff and all of that. We were So, I wanna do that, help me do that. Help me do that. I wanna, like, it's here and we're seeing it. And yeah, we've got a lot of our online internal data, which is really cool.
I'm not.
But I would like to kind of bring that and have something to like. Yeah.